Glory to Jesus Christ. Today we'll be having our third installment of our study of the Divine Liturgy from the book St. Germanus of Constantinople on the Divine Liturgy. And where we pick up this week is at the moment in the liturgy where there's the great entrance. And then this will take us to the end of the liturgy on this video today. So as we hear again this description of the Divine Liturgy from the 8th century in Constantinople, this is the great entrance. After the sermon, the patriarch and the clergy descend from the synthronon and stand about the altar. One of the deacons goes to the ambo to recite the petitions for the catechumens and their dismissal. This, by the time of Germanus, was already a mere formality. The elaton, a large veil, is spread over the altar. As one of the deacons continues the intercessions, several others, taking a censer, leave the church through one of the northeast doors and go to the scuffalachion, where the gifts had been prepared. Completing the preparation of the gifts, they begin the procession back to the church, entering through one of the side doors directly across from the ambo. As they enter, the deacons begin to sing the cherubic hymn, which is then taken up by the psalmists. Visually, the great entrance was the most dramatic rite in the liturgy. A pair of deacons led the procession with candles and incense. Next came a deacon with a fan, followed by deacons carrying the veils used to cover the chalices and patens. Then came the gifts themselves, the bread and wine to be consecrated, contained in the chalices and patens, and finally the air, which was used to cover all the gifts. The procession moved from the side door to the center of the nave, just behind the ambo. If the emperor was present at the liturgy, he would meet the procession here, accompanied by his entire entourage. Doubled in size, the procession wound its way around the ambo and up along the solea to the doors of the sanctuary. There the gifts were presented to the patriarch, and all the participants in the procession returned to their proper places. No additional formulae accompanied the rite. There were no commemorations to interrupt the cherubic hymn, nor was anything said as the gifts were placed on the altar. As the psalmist completed the final repetition of the cherubic hymn, the patriarch bowed to his concelebrants around the altar and asked for their prayers. They responded with the text from Luke 1:35, "May the Holy Spirit come down upon you and the power of the Most High overshadow you." Then the patriarch moved up to the altar for the Anaphora, beginning with the preparatory prayer of the proskomedia. No litany followed the entrance. And then the Anaphora. After completing his prayer, the patriarch turns to the people and says, "Peace to all." The archdeacon then commands the assembled faithful to share the peace. "Let us love one another." All then exchange the kiss of peace with those of their own rank, clergy with clergy, lay people with lay, men with men, women with women. The only response to the diaconal command is the exchange of the kiss. Then all chant the creed. The great veil or air is removed from the gifts in preparation for the anaphora proper. The anaphora was said silently, with no ceremonial action, and thus Germanus does not give it any sort of symbolic explanation. Rather, he gives a straightforward outline of the content of the prayer, which, on a normal Sunday in Constantinople, was that of St. Basil the Great. And then the Lord's Prayer and Communion. The Lord's Prayer followed the anaphora immediately, and then the distribution of communion. Germanus says little about either and ends his commentary rather abruptly. Perhaps this was due to the fact that frequent communion was no longer common in his time, and in any case of little interest visually, unlike the splendor of the processions earlier in the liturgy. After communion, the deacons took the vessels back to the scuffalachion. A deacon exclaimed, "Let us depart in peace," and the prayer behind the ambo was read in the nave as the clergy processed out of the church. Such, in brief, was the shape of the liturgy in Germanus's day. The scope of this introduction makes a more complete description impossible, but the reader is encouraged to pursue the subject by reviewing works cited in the footnotes. And then those footnotes, if anybody wants those, you can check with me about it, or if you order the book itself, then you'll have those footnotes as well. So this completes the description of the Divine Liturgy in the 8th century from the book St. Germanus on the Divine Liturgy. Glory to Jesus Christ.